Kia ora, and welcome to the Tātaitai Puhanga Waro mō te Rino, the carbon emissions calculator for steel products. We'll be taking you through a step-by-step walkthrough of how to use the calculator to provide a robust carbon offsetting option for the steel products used in your projects. On this first page, you'll find background information on our carbon calculator and its purpose. As you can see, at the bottom of the page is a link where you can find out more background information on the calculator and its development. When you select the Next Page button, it will take you through to Project Information. You'll need to confirm that you're wanting to pursue a zero carbon steel certification to progress forward. When you select Yes, all of the options will now become visible to you. You'll also need to provide your organisation name, a project ID if this is applicable to you, a contact email address, and a contact phone number. You'll then need to press the Next Page button. Before you get started, there is some key information you'll need to have in hand to successfully fill out the required fields in the calculator. This is detailed on this page here, and covered off in more detail in the link on screen if you require further guidance. If you'd like to better understand the background to the calculator, please refer to the program rules, which you can find the link to here. Once you have filled out the calculator, if the carbon impact of your steel products is less than 20 tonne, you'll have the option to offset this straight away. If the carbon impact of your steel products is greater than 20 tonne, your form will be submitted to ECOS, who will be in touch regarding next steps. On this page, you'll also see certification and administrative fees for offsetting your products depending on the carbon impact. If you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch with ECOS. So let's get started. As you can see, at the top of the calculator, there are a number of categories you can choose from. This includes roofing and cladding, structural steel, light framing, steel reinforcing, semi-finished, and stainless. For this particular walkthrough, we'll look at structural steel. Before you get started, we'd recommend looking through the structural steel product information sheet. You can look at this by clicking here. Your next step is to select your products. In this example, let's use the Blue Scope steel welded beams and columns. This will now bring up a range of fields you'll need to input data for. The first one is the product module size. Let's select medium. You'll now need to indicate the amount in tonnes of the welded beams and columns that you're going to be using in your project. Let's say it's 1.5 tonnes. Next is accounting for the road, rail and sea freight delivery distances that your product has travelled. In our example, let's say that the welded beams and columns were manufactured at a plant outside of Sydney. You'd need to account for the road or rail delivery distance from that plant to the port. In this case, let's say it's road by 100 kilometres. You'll then need to account for the sea freight delivery distances from that port to its port of destination. In this example, let's say it's Port Jackson in Sydney to the Auckland port, which is 2,463 kilometres. Next, we'll need to think about the road or rail delivery distance from the Auckland port to the distribution or fabrication centre. Let's say that's 100 kilometres by rail. Lastly, we'd need to think about the final road or rail delivery distance to the project site. Let's say that's an additional 30 kilometres by road, so we'd amend this figure to 130 kilometres. Your supplier might be able to help you with this information if you don't have it at hand. You can also work it out by finding where the product was originally sourced from and using distant calculators. For quick reference, we have linked those here on the calculator for road, sea freight, and rail. An example of this is for, let's say, our port-to-port travel. When we click here, we want to indicate our start port. So in our example, it was Port Jackson in Sydney. Select there. Our destination was the Auckland port. Port of Auckland, select. Then we select Calculate. This will give us a distance of 1,330 nautical miles, which when converted to kilometres is the 2,463 kilometres we used in the example. Now that we have filled out the required fields for our blue scope steel welded beams and columns example, we'll now be able to see the production, fabrication, installation, transport, and total carbon emissions for this particular product. If you have other structural steel products you're using in your project, you'd simply select them one by one and follow the same steps. You can do this by scrolling to the top of the screen again and selecting your products. For example, we might want to also add other Australian welded sections. When we scroll down, we'll now see these fields are available to fill out. Once you have completed this category, you'll see at the bottom of the page the total structural steel carbon emissions. These are displayed in kilograms and tonnes. You'll also see the cost to offset in New Zealand dollars. This cost is in addition to the certification and administration fees mentioned earlier. If you are offsetting products in other categories, you can do so by advancing through using the next page option. An alternative is to navigate using this panel at the top of the page. If you have no other categories that you would like to select in your project, you can also advance to the summary section. Here you'll see the total emissions for the project in both kilograms and tonnes, as well as the total cost to offset. You'll also need to indicate whether you would like to offset these emissions. If you select to do so, the payment details will then be visible to you. Again, a reminder that on completion, if the carbon impact of your steel products is less than 20 tonne, then you'll have the option to offset straight away. But if the carbon impact of your steel product is greater than 20 tonne, your form will be submitted to ECOS, who will get in touch regarding next steps. Thank you for taking the time to watch this walkthrough. If you'd like further guidance and information, you'll find the details in the video notes.